You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about sports in the state of Michigan?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Stables Media, the show that provides research and statistics about all the Detroit and Michigan sports teams, whether fans like it or not, and detects, exposes, and reveals actual and hidden facts and truth that the mainstream media doesn't want you to know. No junk, no entertainment, no homerism, no slappiness, no coddling, no pop culture, no conspiracy theories, no opinions, no shilling, and no fluff. Head over to our website, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast.com. Follow us on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Michigan_Truth, and like and share our verified Facebook page, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Also listen to us on Spreaker, Castbox, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts via iTunes, and Spotify, and like Stables Media on Facebook. The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers, nor does it represent or compete against any mainstream media in the state of Michigan. It is also not for entertainment or debating purposes. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them. And it is for every sports fan's own good because the truth is out there. And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Stables Media. Taylor Phillips, Ed Smith, and the returning Frank Vajner with you guys. My opening statement, Juwan Howard may be a great coach, but he needs to control his emotions, period. While the Lions overhaul their rebuild and the Pistons trade Svi Mykhailiuk. For whom? We'll find out. Ed, what is your opening statement?
Opening statement for me is we may be seeing a turning point around the corner for the Red Wings. We have fastly approached with the Tigers opening day. The Pistons keep making moves, and for Michigan, but for the Spartans too, but especially for Michigan, it is simply now time. Put up or shut up.
Yes. Frank, what's your opening statement?
My opening statement for tonight, March Madness is finally back. It's a great time of year to be back, and we're going to discuss a lot tonight on whether Michigan and Michigan State can go real far or if they're going to be gone after the first weekend.
Yes, we will. Before we get started, we want to remind everyone to download the all-new social sports mobile app, VigIt. Enter the referral code STABLES for Stables Media when you sign up. Capital S, lowercase letter B in the middle. Available on the Apple App Store and Google Play. Download the VigIt app and sign up with the referral code STABLES for 1,000 free Vig coins to get you started. So we got a lot to talk about. Michigan, Michigan State, Pistons, and Lions. Lions went straight to work. But first off, the Michigan Wolverines, our top story. Head coach Juwan Howard, as Maryland alleged in the Big Ten quarterfinals during this heated discussion between Juwan Howard and head coach Marc Turgeon of Maryland. They got in a heated argument with Maryland head coach Marc Turgeon, Juwan Howard, and Howard got ejected. Now, Maryland alleged that Howard threatened to kill Turgeon by yelling the threat directly to him, according to 24/7 Sports. Now, I know Howard's among four coaches nominated for the Coach of the Year, NCAA men's basketball. But like I said in my opening statement, Juwan Howard needs to control his emotions. Ed, we're going to start with you, and then we'll go to Frank. Ed, kind of tough to digest when you hear about it.
Well, on the surface, it is a stinker that takes the shine off of what Michigan was able to accomplish in this Big Ten tournament itself, knowing that they were in a little bit of a deficit going in and facing an even bigger one even before they exit that tournament. We'll get to that a little bit later on in regards to Isaiah Livers. But when you look in depth into the situation and what really happened, look at the video itself. Yes, it shows Juwan Howard stepping out of the line of the coaches' boxes, but that had no regard or issue or anything towards Turgeon until Turgeon himself made it an issue, making it a spectacle, throwing all this and stuff, throwing all the extremities, making taunting sounds, approaching Howard first. The video shows him, Turgeon, stepping towards Juwan Howard first. That triggered Howard's reaction, and his instincts took over. You saw it mentioned in his post-conference. Probably played it as a joke a little, but hey, that dude is from the South Side of Chicago. You step to another man like that, I don't care, especially if he's 6'9", but if you step to a dude from Chicago like that, do not get all hasty when he comes back at you with the fire. So from my vantage point, now again, this may be me being Michigan, I'm giving the Michigan bias a point of view, but no, here's what it comes down to. Coach Howard should not have lost his temper like that. I can see on the one hand where if you're a recruit or a young player or just anywhere in the country, and you see that, see that type of fire, see that type of display, that passion being on exhibit, it makes you think. And I think Tim McCormick brought it up perfectly on Twitter. He said, you know what, it leaves an impression on a young player, like, you know what, that's the kind of guy I want to play for, the kind of guy that's going to stand up for me, stand up for his team, and all that sort of thing. But on the other hand, if not done properly, it can, forget about the fact that, it gets you kicked out of the game, but you have viable replace, as we saw in Michigan's case, that did not affect them, knowing with their coaching staff how deep or well versatile they are. They had no problem picking up the pieces just in case, in a situation like this. But also, you got to remember, like, if you have patterns of this, it can potentially create a reputation of sorts to where the refs may look to target that in order to trigger a response to penalize you and your team. The extreme version of this to me would be Bob Knight, but I don't think it'll get that far. And while I agree that Coach Howard should be careful and mindful in certain situations, I will not ask him to apologize for his passion or what he shows. Like, you see it whenever a player of his gets knocked down, he's right there on the floor picking him back up. That's what you want to see in a coach. That's what's called being a true leader of men. And listen, I'll be honest, I'll pull it out here. We criticize Tom Izzo, sometimes rightfully so, for how he reacts, for how he shows his emotions. But yet, at the same time, we also play it up as a charm. Oh, look at it. As part of his character, his fiery persona. That's how Tom Izzo is. Well, why can't we show that same respect to Juwan Howard, especially with the effort and the job that he's done in just, 2 years at the school? So that plays at both sides here. To me, what it comes down to is Turgeon was more so the instigator of triggering Juwan Howard's reaction. And also it's a matter of Turge being, in my view, salty over the fact that his team got spanked by the Wolverines this year. Not once, not twice, but thrice. And what it all boils down and comes down to it, at the end of the day, while there was a complaint of sorts allegedly filed, and then it was spread about on social media by guys like Doug Gottlieb, just trying to drum up clicks and clickbait and ratings, so to speak, to view at their profiles. And it all comes down to, at the end of the day, there was no investigation filed, and frankly, no investigation needed. The Big Ten agreed. And assembly, it's a moot point of this subject. Yeah, they'll bring it up every once in a while whenever these two teams play, especially if these are the two coaches. But that's all there is. It's just creating some stoke, trying to create attention for and to generate hype for the next matchup between these two teams. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, that's all there is to it. And even if Juwan Howard did say it himself, the threat itself, I think he was just saying it out of anger, which probably might not have meant much.
He probably felt that Turgeon was being over the line disrespectful, not just saying, "Oh, you're not going to talk to me," that sort of fashion, but also coming after him the way he did. So when you say that, plus add on your actions in an instigating manner, hell yeah, it's going to trigger a reaction. So yeah. I don't blame Howard for the reaction, but I will agree that he does have to be careful because now other coaches and like I said, the refs, they may see that and use that as a way to try and push his buttons. And they
may hear it as well.
Exactly. So they can't develop a reputation of getting kicked out of games because there may come a point to where, his players are going to need him for that guidance in that crucial point in time in the game. And if he's kicked out, if he's ejected, you may not have a Verino backup or quality assistant that one of the ones Michigan has to help back you up here. But again, it all comes down to, can Coach Howard maintain himself at certain moments, but still maintain and show the pattern of the fiery passion that he has, not just for his players, but for the whole for the whole program. So I got no problem with him showing that passion. He just has to be mindful that doesn't get him ejected more often.
Yeah, Frank, your analogy.
Wow, Ed, that's a tough one to follow up. You gave some really great stuff. But, I think I can kind of speak to this as someone who sits on the bench at high school basketball games, being a member of a coaching staff and also doing a little bit of basketball officiating at times. I've seen it from both sides. Now, first and foremost, I have no issue with Juwan Howard being fired up at Marc Turgeon. I mean, the whole "I'll effing kill you," that was stepping over the line a little bit, but, I'm just going to attribute that to emotion. I don't think he really meant that he was going to go kill Turgeon, because I don't see Juwan Howard as that type of person. And plus,
like I said, it was out of anger.
Yeah, and Taylor, Ed, I have been in those situations too, where I've been frustrated sitting on the bench because of a call that went a certain way or a no call that didn't happen. I mean, it hasn't gotten to the point where I've been screaming profanity because I'd get in serious trouble. But then again, that may be because I kind of know what I can and can't do. So in Juwan Howard's case, I have no issue with him showing fire. It's the same thing I said about Tom Izzo when everyone made a big stink about him getting on Aaron Henry for giving a poor effort on defense. Coaches are passionate people, and I've been with a lot of passionate coaches. You know, there is a line you do have to toe, and sometimes you might go over it unintentionally. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't be looked at as it's the worst thing ever. I mean, kind of like what Ed said. I mean, I know Turgeon says, "Oh, I filed reports with the Big Ten," and the Big Ten's like, yeah, there's really nothing here. Juwan Howard didn't try to kill you. He didn't take a swing at you or anything like that. So this is just something that we're probably going to watch, make sure it doesn't get completely out of hand. But fellas, learn to get along and don't do anything that's going to get you suspended down the road. I mean, oddly enough, we had a game at Saline on Saturday night where both our coach at Bedford and Celine's coach were told, make sure you stay in your coach's box. So because officials will always look for things like that. If you've got a reputation for getting out of the box or getting overly angry, they're going to look and put you under that much of a microscope. So I think Juwan Howard's going to have to watch himself a little bit more closely, but at the same time, don't lose your passion for the game, especially at this time of the year, because you're going to need it at every point in the season, because you never know when your season's going to come to an end.
Exactly. In other words, don't let your passion blow up. You got to harness your passion.
Exactly, and find that happy medium too. Mm-hmm. And it's a tough, and walking that fine line, I know is easier said than done because I've been there. But still, it's something that you got to do, whether you like it or not.
You got to harness it, but don't and learn by it, but don't be blinded by it. You can live by it, but don't be dependent on it.
Let the church say amen, Ed.
And amen. Say amen again.
Amen. Yeah. All right. So speaking of Howard, we already mentioned that Juwan Howard is among 4 coaches nominated for NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Coach of the Year. Also, NBA teams have shown interest in Juwan Howard as head coach. So Juwan Howard, as we go to Ed and then Frank, may not last too long if he goes to an NBA team. Ed, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, hearing that doesn't surprise me when you have a coach who, within his first 2 years at this level, with a program such as this, having, the type of success that he's having, of course you're going to see offers like this, okay? Jim Harbaugh was getting these, forget about what he was doing before he got, the first couple of years in Michigan. Talk about what he was doing back at Stanford before he eventually went to the 49ers, okay? It was nonstop talk and chatter around the clock of, oh my goodness, this offer, that offer. Before we finally said, okay, yep, I'm going to San Fran. So it's no surprise that you're seeing it done here. Plus, when you don't forget about the fact that during his waning years of playing in the NBA, he sat and learned more on the bench, learned the culture of what being in that system of the Miami Heat, learning behind Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra and whatnot. And you hear, of course, the words of praise that guys like LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and many others will give in terms of describing Juwan Howard, because of what? They leaned on his guys, on his mentorship. He was their veteran. He was, their sage in a way, because they were the younger players. Yes, they were the star players, but they still need some type of guidance of some sort. And Howard would be one of those type of players or guys for them to depend on. That's why you hear the comments that they're talking about. Like even Juwan mentioned in the Fab Five documentary, like when guys like that were saying, oh, that's not Juwan Howard of the Miami Heat. That's Juwan Howard of the Fab Five. That speaks to the level of respect, first and foremost, that they had for Juwan as a player. But also, once you factor that in, and like I mentioned before, learning behind the system of coaches and that culture of what the Miami Heat breeded, it doesn't surprise me to see Juwan having the type of success that he had. I think he could have had this type of success anywhere, but the fact that he's doing it at Michigan, it's heartwarming in a way because that's his alma mater. It is also in some instances tying up loose ends that felt were left opened or unfinished with the conclusion of the Fab Five era, and of course of how that ended in its aftermath. But also, it speaks to how, again, just doing this itself, it's there for a reason. I think Juwan would have had this type of level of success anywhere, but the fact he's doing it in Michigan makes it much more special. But no, yeah. I don't think he's leaving the school anytime soon. The fact that he was crying his eyes out at his introductory press conference shows you, to me, how much he wanted this job, how much he loves this job, how he wanted to be here in this place. The fact he's got his family involved with it. He's got one son playing on the team now. He's got another son on the way. I don't see Juwan leaving the school anytime soon, or at least until, both of his sons will have already been through the school or at least done playing college and on to the next level, that sort of thing. So I think stay packed, stay tight, and knowing that Ward Manuel will heavily reward him sooner rather than later with a possible extension lends me to believe that, Juwan ain't going anywhere anytime soon.
Good point. Frank.
Interesting that we bring this up tonight because when I saw the news of this, I saw a tweet from Anthony Bellino. He asked if we're going to have to keep doing this, and I said to him, eventually Ward Manuel's going to have to pony up the money because, I've heard a lot of people say Juwan should go to Ward and say, I want $1 more than what you're paying Jim Harbaugh because I'm actually getting results. Mm-hmm. And, of course, the response to that was, for what purpose? Do you listen when he speaks? His money isn't the motivator for him. And, Ed, like you mentioned, I can kind of see that because, he's coaching one of his sons right now. He's got another son that's going to be coming through the program. It's his alma mater. I do remember his press conference. But, I think it's going to be the point where he's going to wonder, says, hey, I love it here. I love what I do. But truthfully, I should be making a lot more money than what I'm making because you're paying a football coach way more. And how many championships has he won? 0. And I've got one Big Ten championship already, and that's not going to be the last one. And there's some other people that are saying, oh, he could possibly do it for free. I don't buy that at all.
No.
And this is what somebody else said. It says, I don't think it's for Juwan, but it would make him feel better if they pay him on results and not overinflated markets for a coach that can't win. So just some thoughts on that. But truthfully, I think probably after this season, Ward Manuel is going to give him a pretty decent raise. Whether it's more than what Harbaugh makes right now, that remains to be seen. But I could see it happening. And as for the NBA stuff, I'll agree with Ed. I don't think he'll go after this season, but who knows? But I'd say we'll at least wait until both his sons finish playing and graduate, and then maybe he'll consider dipping his toes in the NBA water, or he may end up saying, I'm going to stay at Michigan until I decide to retire, and I kick back on the porch and enjoy what I've accomplished.
I could see revisiting this in about, 4 to 5 years for now. Because like I said, that'll probably be when both sons are through the school and everything, whatnot. But also consider the fact that if Juwan keeps up this level of success, winning Big Ten titles, perennial contender, and let's say he wins a national title or two, wishful thinking. But again, that will keep these persistent rumors going to the point where even Juwan might think, I love it here. The atmosphere is great. But if I'm doing this well, with these young kids and help shaping them into these great future pro players, let's see what I could do with actual pro players, especially some of my peers that I've been around spending 2+ decades with as a player and behind the, don't forget, he was also an assistant coach with Miami as well, I believe, before he took the Michigan job as well. So there's that to build upon. And I think when you hear more and see more of his reputation grow, it will help be more of a positive than a negative. I don't see this ending. If he were to make the jump, I don't see it ending the way it did for John Beilein, because Coach Beilein was far different circumstances, completely different palette whatsoever, and he went to Cleveland. Come on. You couldn't do any worse than that. And obviously, Coach Beilein was not completely blameless for how that venture ended, but still, you could say he at least gave it a shot. He knows what the experience it was, and he's still a terrific coach. He's still a Hall of Famer in my view, at least. So, I don't know if Juwan's going to stay here for 10 years. I don't know if he's going to stay here for 5, but I do know he'll be here for quite a while. And people, especially those around the rest of the Big Ten, better get damn well used to it.
Yeah, they better. So, the Big Ten Conference Championship tournament got over with last weekend. Michigan did beat Maryland 79-66, but then they lost despite a valiant comeback to the Ohio State Buckeyes 68-67. They were without Isaiah Livers, who was out with a stress fracture in his right foot or right ankle, one of the two. But, Michigan, still a little bit of room for criticism, but they made a comeback. They just fell short. But now they must focus on the NCAA tournament being the number 1 seed. They'll await the winner between Mount St. Mary's and Texas Southern in the first 4, which starts Thursday. The winner will play Michigan on Saturday. So we're going to go ahead and do the Viget predicted score between Mount St. Mary's and Texas Southern just for fun. Ed, we'll start with you, and then we'll go over to Frank. Just a wild guess. Ed, what's your Viget predicted score?
My Viget predicted score, I don't know. These two teams, my goodness, I'm just going to play for fun. Let's go. Mount St. Mary's 74, Texas Southern 68, and then Michigan will beat them by 15 or whatever on Saturday.
All right. Frank, your Viget predicted score.
I'm in the same boat as Ed. I have not seen either of these teams play. I don't really know their style, so I'm just gonna throw darts here. I'm gonna go Mount St. Mary's 70, Texas Southern 65.
Maybe I just like the name Mount St. Mary's. It reminds me of Loyola with Sister Jean and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Mount St. Mary's 72 and Texas Southern 67. By 5. So those are our Viget predicted scores, brought to you by the Viget app. Referral code Stables, capital S at the beginning, lowercase letter B in the middle, for Stables Media to get 1,000 free Vig coins. Now, the Michigan State Spartans, they lost to the Maryland Terrapins 68-57. Michigan State will play the UCLA Bruins. The Spartans will. The Bruins are 17-9, and that's in the first 4 Thursday. And the winner will take on BYU. We'll go to our Viget predicted score again. Ed, what is your Viget predicted score between the Spartans and the Bruins?
My Viget predicted score, man, I could see this being a real tough one.
Close one?
Yeah, very close, like a 3 or 4 point game. It's going to come down to the final seconds. I say MSU 58, UCLA 54. It's gonna be real. It's gonna be real close. But I think MSU can, as long as they don't make that last critical last minute mistake that I'm used to seeing them do it in football. I see the Spartans at least getting out of the first game. So 58-54 we my Viget predicted score. For the first 4 game.
All right, Frank, what's your Viget predicted score between the Spartans and Bruins?
Well, I think it's going to be a little bit more high scoring. I know UCLA can. They like to score from the 2-point range, but their 3-point shooting is not really that strong, and I'm not really sold on them defensively. Plus, I think Tom Izzo is going to have a team rested, prepared, and ready to go. Plus, and I know people are saying, they're playing in Mackey Arena in West Lafayette, which has been a house of horrors, but they're not playing Purdue. There's no paint crew there. They're going to have mostly Michigan State fans there, and I definitely see this being somewhat close, but I think Aaron Henry or Josh Langford will hit a big shot late to kind of keep UCLA at arm's reach, just keep them far back enough. So I'm going to go Michigan State 68, UCLA 62.
All right, 68-62.
Score.
All right, I'm going to go Michigan State 63 and UCLA 58. Those are our Viget predicted scores. Brought to you by the Viget Sports Mobile app. Referral code Stables for Stables Media to get 1,000 free Vig coins. Capital S, lowercase letter B in the middle. Now the Pistons. According to ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski, the Pistons had traded Svi Mykhailiuk and a 2027 second-round draft pick to the Oklahoma City Thunder for guard Hamidou Diallo. And we're going to do this with our What's Your Grade segment brought to you by the Viget app.
Pencils down, everyone. It's time to find out what's your grade.
Ed, what's your grade on the Svi Mykhailiuk trade?
If I were to give a grade on the Svi Mykhailiuk trade, I would give it B-, a relative B-, probably borderline C+, because we want to see how Diallo is going to perform as a result of this trade. But first of all, let's talk about the details of what we're missing out, or what's going to be going on, what's being swapped. In Svi, someone who I thought was going to be a potential building piece around with his three-point shooting, while you do lose a career shooting 37% three-point shooter, which, today's NBA is needed, it seems to me that you're going to gain a guy in Diallo who is going to get more minutes, more playing time to showcase what he's got. You're going to get a guy who's a defensive wing, young, long, 6'5". He's a long defender who's a wing. Who shoots better percentage from the field. That's mainly the fact that he is a slasher. So he has the ability to drive to the rim and get quality looks at the basket because he's that up close to it. He still needs more to work on in terms of the rest of his offensive makeup, whether it be his jump shooting or mid-range or whatever the case may be. But despite all that, in terms of if you read the reactions of some of the OKC players, like, for example, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, amongst others, they were quite sad to see him go. So to me, that speaks to the level of person and teammate that the team could be gaining and could be getting as a result, which could create a great locker room presence and in turn create chemistry for this team. And I don't know how he's going to do in Dwayne Casey's system. That's still yet to be seen. But in terms of looking at what he does bring to the table, he's a young, long, athletic defensive wing who can get to the rim almost at will, puts up a good number shooting-wise as a result of that. It still has more to work on, but his defense speaks for itself, and he could be a great locker room presence. I don't know. I don't want to call him locker room leader because he's still young. You need some type of veteran presence there to be for these young players to learn from to become eventual leaders themselves. But I could see him being a great locker room presence. So as a result of all of that, I'm going to give this one a B-.
All right. Frank, what's your grade on the Svi trade?
I'm in the same boat as Ed. I'm going to give it a B- as well. I mean, because they get a defender in Diallo who I think, like Ed says, good locker room presence as well. I saw him play a little bit when he was in college. I believe he went to Kentucky, if my memory serves me correctly, and I thought he was a nice player there as well. So I think he's got a chance to possibly be a part of the future. I don't think he's going to be a star player, but he's going to be a nice role player that everybody's going to like. They're going to respect him for the hard work he does, especially since he plays defense as well and is one of the better defenders. So I give it a B-.
All right, I'll give it a B- as well. And we're going to continue with our What's Your Grade segment just in a little bit. The Pistons signed center Tyler Cook to a 10-day contract, and Killian Hayes is medically cleared from his right hip injury to return to basketball activities. So the Pistons get at least one player back from a long, long injury.
Absolutely. And I think in terms of Killian Hayes for his development, at least this this injury cut his season short way more than he wanted it to be. It made him miss out on some potential growing experiences for him as a player. But the potential for him is still there. And I think if you had the right pieces around him, like we see, for example, what Diallo could become in an instance, as the way what we're seeing Troy Weaver completely tear down and rebuild this entire roster. Killian Hayes is still, in my view, one of those important building blocks for your future. So it'll be good to see him back on the floor soon.
Yeah. Frank, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think it's great to get Killian Hayes back because I think he's also a key building block for the future. Aaron, when he went out, it was basically either DeLon Wright or Derrick Rose before he got traded or whoever else was running the point, and the team kind of struggled. So getting him back, kind of getting him in there, I think you're going to see them perform better, and it'll be nice to see him back there. And I think, and of course, the Tyler Cook 10-day contract signing, I believe, was just a depth move as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, so that's Pistons, and now we continue our What's Your Grade segment with the Detroit Lions. They have signed veteran tight end Josh Hill from the New Orleans Saints. Don't know what the details of that signing are, but we'll go to Ed and then Frank. Ed, what is your grade on tight end Josh Hill?
C+, more than likely. This was a Dan Campbell call. Obviously a needed call, too, because I believe they cut Jesse James as well over the past week or so. So this was moved up for depth purposes. But also Dan Campbell probably saw him play under his wing or under his guidance when he was in New Orleans. So this is probably more so a Dan Campbell call rather than a Brad Holmes call. So I'd give it a C+.
All right, Frank?
I'll make it 2 for 2 for me for agreeing with Ed. I think it's a C+. I don't think Josh Hill's going to make a huge impact, but again, Dan Campbell coached him in New Orleans, so I think there's some familiarity there. Plus, he can kind of be that veteran presence that can probably take TJ Hockenson under his wing and kind of help him develop a little bit more, and I think he'll probably be a better leader than Jesse James was, so C+ for me.
I could definitely see Campbell, before we move on, I could definitely see Campbell trying to build and establish something with Hockenson for sure. So good analysis there on that one, Frank.
Yeah,
thank you, Ed.
Good point is right. So we'll go with a C+. Next up, the Lions re-signed defensive end Romeo Okwara to a 3-year, $39 million contract, and that's big too. Ed, what is your grade on the re-signing of Okwara?
B+ for sure. Even though it was inevitable that there was going to be turnover and reconstructing of the roster, it's good to see to keep some of the pieces that were working at their same spot. So they're bringing back Trey Flowers, who was productive last year, and you bring in another guy back, and Okwara as well. To me, it presents a consistency pattern for one of your lines of production that even though it was a weakness at times, the defensive line still had some bright spots, and those two were obviously the two bright spots. And the fact that I believe his younger brother is on the team as well, so that's probably played a hand in his re-signing. But I got no problems with this deal at all. I think the money was not too much, right amount of years, so I really have little to no issues about this. B+, even if probably a low A-.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a low A- as well. Frank?
I'm going kind of B+, A- as well, fellas. I mean, what I love most is the money. I mean, $13 million a year. I had heard that he was going to get possibly $15 million or more per year. So I know. So I mean, there's people saying, well, he probably offered a hometown discount because he wanted to play with his little brother Julian, who's on the team. But I mean, you give Brad Holmes credit for keeping a piece around that was actually productive. I mean, you've got Trey Flowers, who did very well, and of course, you got to have a strong defensive line in the NFL. So having Okwara and Flowers back, plus another move that they made today, which I'm sure we'll get to later, and you at least got to have a position of strength and have a good foundation for this defense. So B+ A- for me.
Well, it doesn't surprise me too much when you consider Brad Holmes, what he did draft Aaron Donald. He got the Rams to the Super Bowl based on part of what that defensive line had done. Even if Sue wasn't in his best years, he still was a presence on that line, mainly because he was playing with Aaron Donald, yes, but still, it made dividends. It created results. And obviously, we saw the effects of not having Aaron Donald on the field could do to a team, as we saw in the NFC Divisional Playoff game. So Brad Holmes, I think, wants to recreate that type of atmosphere and magic here. He's doing good so far with these, by keeping what actually worked here under Patricia and Quinn. But I still see him getting another guy through the draft, possibly, to help really build the defensive line into a true strength of the team.
Yeah, and the draft comes next month. So the Lions have released offensive lineman Joe Dahl. So I think we don't need to grade that one because that just clears up cap space. But
yeah, most of these moves that we've seen and the players that they've gotten rid of, like Chase Daniel, Danny Shelton, Des Trufant, even if losing guys like Jamal Agnew, Marvin Jones, Coleman, Davis. We already mentioned the Jesse James cutting. Most of these are attributed more to cap issues rather than makeup / culture / what the GM and or coach would want issues. I think it's more speaks to how very little money this team has and how they can't afford all of these guys at the same time. So some people got to go. That's just nature of the business.
Yep.
You're absolutely right, Ed.
Yeah, and speaking of the Packers, the Lions have signed Green Bay Packers running back Jamal Williams to a 2-year, $7.5 million contract. More of our What's Your Grade segment coming up right now. Ed, what's your grade on Jamal Williams?
B+. I like the money that they're giving him. It's not too much. Plus, he's a guy you can plug in. By the way, it tells me that they're expecting Adrian Peterson to go somewhere else. I remember hearing murmurs of him possibly wanting to see if he can reach out to Tom Brady, see if he can get to Tampa, get himself a ring next year. I don't blame him. That's pretty much the only thing missing left from his Hall of Fame career. So I think the Lions knew that AP was going to be going somewhere else next year. So that's why they made this move. Jamal Williams is a guy you can plug in immediately in your running back depth chart. He can be not just a solid backup to DeAndre Swift. He can also be a guy you can have in case of insurance, just in case, say, Swift and I hate to keep knocking on wood with this, Kerryon Johnson with his injury history, if either one of them were to go down, you do have a reliable guy in Jamal Williams to help carry the sled. But I could see this. Speaking on the topic of Kerryon, I want to see, hopefully, if Dan Campbell is smart or if he sees what we're all seeing, or his coaches in the offense know what the hell they're doing. They got to get Kerryon Johnson involved more this year. I think while it was nice to see Adrian Peterson show that he still has what it takes to perform in the NFL, it took away from Kerryon Johnson's development. And what we saw his rookie season has slowly diminished over the past couple of years, mainly due to injury, yes, but I think because he's not getting the proper touches that he needs. So I think if you focus your strategy better in regards to your running game, that yes, DeAndre Swift is going to be your star guy. But remember, Kerryon, we saw some hype and we said good things about Kerryon at the start of his career for a reason. We can't lose track and lose sight of that. Otherwise, you're going to hurt his development even more. So I like to see him get Kerryon more involved for this season.
All right. B+, Ed says it. Frank.
I am going to give this a B with potential to possibly get to a B+, maybe even an A-, because, for one, what I love about it is you got Jamal Williams and you didn't have to give him a ton of money. $7.5 million total. That's great pay for somebody who's expected to be a backup running back, and he can also step in the event that DeAndre Swift or Kerryon Johnson get injured. Plus, I think he's an upgrade over Adrian Peterson, and he can take a little bit more of a beating because, let's be honest, AP he's got a ton of miles on his tires, and he probably wants to go win a ring, like Ed mentioned, probably go sign in Tampa and play with Tom Brady. But again, I think I haven't really seen a ton from Jamal Williams because Aaron Jones was the main man in Green Bay, even though Williams was productive. He's coming to a place that's got not as good as an offensive line blocking for him. But again, maybe we'll see how things go in free agency in the draft, how well this thing gets constructed. But the signing in itself, I give a B with potential to get to B+ or A-.
All right. I'm going to go with a B+ on Jamal Williams, just to range it a little bit. So one more move to grade. The Lions have acquired defensive lineman Michael Brockers at age 31, making $8 million a year in a trade from the Los Angeles Rams in exchange for a 2023 7th-round draft pick. I'm going to go first on this one and grade it an A because the Lions didn't want to spend on Dalvin Tomlinson or Shelby Harris, according to an ESPN Plus article. Ed, what is your grade?
My grade with this would be B+. It helps out a difficult need, a definitive need for this team. Gives him a veteran presence as well. He's been with the Rams for his entire career, going back to 2012 when he came out of LSU. LSU is known for producing good defensive players. Even though he hasn't made a Pro Bowl yet, again, it's not his fault that he's playing on the same line as Aaron Donald. But just in 2020, he had 51 tackles and 5 sacks. Okay, that marked the 4th straight year that he had more than 50 tackles, and the 6th time in his career that he had at least 3 sacks. To me, when you put that on a line with Trey Flowers and Romeo Okwara, that has potential to at least create a more productive defensive line presence this upcoming season that we saw last year, because we saw how bad it was under Patricia, with how somehow you had players, you had a supposed strength for this team, but yet they couldn't get to the damn quarterback. I think we should expect to see a more improvement in this regard, because I think Campbell and his coaching staff are going to have a completely different scheme, and I think they're going to try to make sure to set up and have their the right sets to where, okay, this guy's going to be in his strength and his gap here. This guy's going to be in his strength coming off the edge, and they'll figure it out in a much better way, in a much more clear way than Patricia ever could. So, especially with the money. And the assets that you're giving up with this, right? You're just giving up a future draft pick at the end of the draft 2 years from now. I understand of how 5th and 6th and 7th rounders can turn into sleepers, but to me, Michael Brockers could be a sleeper himself, well worth that exchange. So I'm giving this a solid. I'm giving this an A, or at least an A minus.
Yeah,
especially for the money.
Yeah, ESPN graded it a mid-range A from their ESPN Plus article. That's fair. Why I followed suit.
Very fair.
Yeah. Frank?
Put me in the same boat as giving it an A, especially since they didn't really have to give up anything to get him a 2023 7th-round pick.
Exactly. Didn't give away much.
Yeah, for one of the – I wouldn't call Michael Brockers a superstar defensive lineman, but he's someone who – has been very productive. He's been productive in his career. And I know people are going to point to, well, he played next to Aaron Donald. Anybody would look good. But still, even before Aaron Donald got to the Rams, Brockers was still a decent defensive lineman. And look, I know he's 31, and I would say he's not as young as he used to be, but still, this guy
he's in his prime.
He's still in his prime. He's been productive. He can kind of be that leader on that line, put him with Trey Flowers and Romeo Okwara. I mean, as for who else they put on the defensive line, again, we're probably going to have to wait for the rest of free agency or the draft. I would still expect Brad Holmes to add another piece somehow. But yeah, getting somebody who was a lot more productive, I think he's by far a definitive upgrade over Danny Shelton and Nick Williams and whoever else is probably going to play defensive tackle. So this gets an A for me.
Yep. We all graded a mid-range A. Pistons beat the Raptors, by the way, 116-112. So that is our What's Your Grade segment, brought to you by the Viget Sports Mobile app. Referral code STABLES with a capital S and the lowercase letter B in the middle to get 1,000 free VIG coins. That is for Stables Media. Referral code STABLES. Download the Viget app from the Apple App Store or Google Play. But we're not done with the Lions yet. They released backup Chase Daniel and defensive tackle Danny Shelton to free up $6 million more in salary cap space. So the Lions, in totality, have freed up around $10 million, more than $10 million in salary cap space. So that's really good on their part. And then they lost a few players to free agency. Jamal Agnew agreed to a 3-year, $21 million contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Linebacker Jared Davis agreeing to a 1-year, $7 million deal with the New York Jets. Wide receiver Marvin Jones Jr. agrees with the Jacksonville Jaguars on a 2-year, $14.5 million contract. Cornerback Justin Coleman agrees to a 1-year, $2.75 million deal with the Miami Dolphins. And finally, their place kicker, Matt Prater, signing a 2-year, $7 million contract with the Arizona Cardinals with incentives included. So, Ed, we're going to go to you first again. Then we're going to go to Frank. The Lions seems to me like they're overhauling their rebuild, but those players left for those other teams, and it's not on the Lions' end.
Yeah, I mean, this was another, like we mentioned before, this was seen as a potential inevitable aspect when you consider the fact that, you're changing over from one regime to another, number one, and number two, knowing of how the cap situation was going to look like, how much money that you've already spent and were going to be spending. Remember, they were making moves before this that had to get them underneath the cap because they were too high. That is a result of what you get when you have to take a dead hit for trading Stafford's contract and then taking in Jared Goff's contract at the same time. So they had to do what they had to do. There are costs to this, unfortunately, and that's not even mentioning. You heard the names, we've seen them. There's no need to go over them. It's not even mentioning the possibility that more than likely Kenny Golladay will not be back next year as well. So it's you don't want to say it without saying it, but you got to remember that this is year one of a new regime. Nobody's expecting playoffs or division contention in year one. When you know the pieces that are here. And know what still has to take time to be installed. So I think fans need to brace themselves for another long season. Hopefully one not as painful as the experience that we've had under Patricia, but because the expectations were higher than what they are currently right now. But this is when you got to get patience for sure, especially when you consider this is a first-time coach in a brand new situation. Brad Holmes getting a chance to run the show on his own. Yeah, it takes a lot of time, a lot of turnover, but patience is required.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Frank, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's no surprise that we're seeing some roster turnover. I mean, you can expect that with any regime change. I think the most significant loss is Matt Prater because he was very productive as a kicker. He could hit from beyond 50 yards, and fans loved him. Now they got to go through and find a new guy, and of course, we got to remember who was preceding him, and that was the Gong Show. That was Nate Freeze and Alex Henry, and I'm sure Lions fans don't want to be traumatized by that again. But, I mean, the other guys that they lost...
They didn't last long.
Jamal Agnew, I mean, you could say, in the return game, but all he could really do was just return punts. I mean, kickoff returns in the NFL are like a lunar eclipse. You don't see them too often.
Right.
So
okay, this is far from the days of Josh Cribbs and Dante Hall and Devin Hester. It's a completely different game in regards to that, because especially with rule changes as well in regards to kickoffs.
Exactly. So I mean, pretty much there was really no spot for Agnew. I mean, obviously he goes and signs in Jacksonville where maybe Urban Meyer can put him to use somehow, but still, I don't think he's going to be felt that significantly in Detroit. Same to be said for Marvin Jones, Justin Coleman, and Jared Davis, and others. So, I mean, it's basically out with the old, in with the new, and we'll see who gets brought in to replace these guys in the coming days and weeks, and also via the draft next month.
Also, on a side note, I do wonder and see how Marvin Jones is going to perform, likely being paired with Trevor Lawrence. So that's one to look out for, in my view.
Yeah, and all eyes will be
good point
on those Lions who are continuing to rebuild.
Hey, who's to know if they make any more cuts? Who's to say that we may see one or two of these former players wander on over to L.A.?
They know, or anywhere elsewhere.
They know a guy in L.A., just saying.
Yep, It can't just be L.A., it could be anywhere. But, yeah, that's Lions, and that is our episode. But before we go, we want to remind everyone to download the all-new social sports mobile app, VigIt. Enter the referral code Stables for Stables Media when you sign up. Capital S at the beginning, lowercase letter B in the middle. Available from the Apple App Store and Google Play. Download the VigIt app and sign up with the referral code Stables for 1,000 free Vig coins. Gentlemen, excellent job as always. That concludes another fine episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Stables Media. We'll be back, if not next week, maybe like in 2 weeks. For Ed Smith and Frank Vasher, this is Taylor Phillips signing off. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DT2Phillips with 2 L's. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter and Instagram at EdSmith313. And follow Frank Vasher on Twitter and Instagram at Frank_Vasher. Thanks very much for listening, downloading, and sharing. And remember, the truth is out there. TTFN, ta-ta for now. Power the people. Hit them with a high and we rest our case. Stay safe.
Have fun with your money, America, and get your shots and enjoy this weekend's tournament.
Yes.
Enjoy March Madness, y'all.
The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers, nor does it represent or compete against any mainstream media in the state of Michigan. It is also not for entertainment or debating purposes. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them. And it is for every sports fan's own good because the truth is out there.